Hey guys, it's the Nerdy Movie Guy. So today I'm going to talk about Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. It's a mouthful. So in this movie, now, I think the first thing I should mention is I am sort of new to the MonsterVerse. I have not been a fan of Godzilla since I was a kid. I've not watched all Godzilla movies. I've only seen the MonsterVerse ones. So my opinion can't really hold too much validity because of so many films I haven't watched. Now, I can recognize corny, cheesy, cringy stuff in movies and well-written storylines and well-written characters. So that's what I'm going to use for this review. So in this movie, Godzilla and Kong are back, and they both sort of have their own story in this one before they're forced to team up, as we see in the trailers. So in this movie, Kong, Hollowworth is his domain. That's where he is. He takes care of the place. He set his own booby traps all over the place for whatever creature's gonna try to attack him. Seems like he's got a really firm grip on Hollow Earth. And Godzilla, the surface world, that's his domain. And he goes after different kaiju. He's sort of doing his own thing. He doesn't really have, his story's just a little different from Kong. He has the whole world to protect. Kong, we don't know how big Hollow Earth is supposed to be, because in this movie we find out there are realms within realms. So it's sort of hard to gauge how big it's supposed to be. However, they both have their own domains. So in this movie, Kong definitely gets, I think, a lot more story and a lot more screen time than Godzilla, which I think is fair at this point, because I think having the first three movies in this MonsterVerse with Godzilla from 2014, then we have Kong Skull Island, then we have Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think the first three movies sort of focuses on the monsters on Earth, just in the cities or him going around the ocean. I think this movie sort of just really dove deeper into the concept of Hollow Earth and what more there is to offer. So I think that played a lot of a part in why Kong got a lot more story and why he got a lot more character development in this movie than pretty much a lot of the others. Because he's exploring the place. He's sort of marking his territory. He's keeping an eye on the place. And in this movie, he discovers new locations within Hollow Earth that he hasn't been to. And, excuse me, so in this movie, basically, with the story that sort of propels all of the characters is there is something somewhere in Hollow Earth that's calling. It's calling to, I think Gia's her name, the little kid. So something is calling to Gia. So that propels the characters, the human characters, to go to Hollow Earth. And then the same thing is calling to Godzilla. So for the sort of the first part of the movie, for the humans, the big fear is Godzilla and Kong fought in the last movie where we saw them. So if this thing is calling Godzilla to Hollow Earth, they're scared that will be the end of Kong. So that's sort of the background, worry between all of the human characters is they're relying on Kong to defend Hollow Earth while they're set up their sites, while they're exploring it, while they're mapping out Hollow Earth. They're reliant on Kong, and they fear Godzilla could mess it up. So when they go to Hollow Earth, humans and Kong sort of separate. They have sort of their own stories. The humans end up finding this ancient civilization with other humans that have been there since forever. And they discover all the stuff that's even hard for me to explain. I didn't understand it all. I was there for the ride. There's all kinds of... It's all about gravity for these humans that have been there forever, is they can sort of manipulate gravity, which is the gist I got. So that plays into effect with the overall story, but that is left on the back burner while Kong is exploring more and more Hollow Earth. So he meets, I believe, it's Suko or Sumo. I know Godzilla fans are going to hate me for this review because I don't know the names of everything. I think it's Suko. I'm going to say Suko. Kong meets Suko. So now he has the idea in his head that there are other apes somewhere in Hollow Earth, because he meets some others too that try to attack him, and he sort of doesn't know why. And I think this is building curiosity for Kong, and this propels his reasoning for exploring more and more, because he finds another realm within Hollow Earth that he's never been to before, obviously. So now he has all of this area to explore, and he's got Zuko, and he's trying to train him, he's trying to protect him, he's trying to keep him from attacking Kong, because Zuko attacked him already. So there's just a lot going on for him, and when he finally gets to the rest of the apes, we see sort of some excitement in his eyes at first, because he sees his kind. He thought he was the last of his kind, and clearly with the fight earlier, he knows he's not, but now he found the rest of them. But there's Scar King, and I think he actually posed a decent threat in this movie as far as the visuals and the filming, whatever CGI or motion capture they used. He was visually opposing. He looked like a threat. And he had, his 1v1 with Kong as sort of the standoff between the two characters. And he reveals Shimo. So it's sort of his own... he uses her sort of like a ride. He uses her as a riding beast, part of the movie. And there's this little crystal that... they didn't really explain where it came from. But when he twirls it around like a little wand, Shimo takes damage. So she does whatever Scar King wants. And where I thought this was going is the people, the ancient people within Hollow Earth, they have spears. And their spears are this light blue crystallized spear that looks like the tip at the end of Scar King's weapon. So even their spears, they kind of use to move around the crystals. That was what the humans used to do their thing, manipulating gravity, however it works. So I thought that's where that was going with Scar King. But it was just never addressed. So he has his crystal, controls Shimo. There you go. Shimo attacks Kong. He gets frostbite on his arm. So he's forced to retreat. And when he eventually runs into the humans because plot, he gets to the humans, and of course they're going to help him. This is where we get the giant glove. That's where that comes into play. We've seen it in the trailer. It was not a surprise. It's in the trailers. And so Kong gets his new glove that's going to give him sort of this advantage in the fight. But at this point in the movie, they realize Scar King and Shimo is too much for Kong to handle. Plus, Scar King has an army that he conveniently didn't take with him to fight Kong. But anyway, he's got enough to worry about himself, so he needs help. So he's going for Godzilla. Godzilla also can sense what's going on in Hollow Earth, so he goes to kill another kaiju to absorb this energy so he can supercharge, so he can fight. We don't know if Kong or Godzilla expected Kong to be there or not. All we know is he's charging, he's getting ready for a fight. And at this point in the movie, when he's fighting Kong, when they do meet, because Kong is sort of pointing at the portal. He wants Godzilla to go into the portal. I bet it's not a portal, but he's pointing at the portal, and he wants Godzilla to follow him, but of course Godzilla wants to fight. At this point, they have their fight, they have their rematch. Godzilla's about to be Kong because Godzilla's unstoppable. Mothra now shows up because of another story that happened within Hollow Earth. Geo was able to awaken Mothra. I don't really know how. They didn't really explain how. Mothra's just back. So Mothra stops Godzilla because he sees her. He's like, oh my god, Mothra, I guess I won't kill Kong. Because plot. So Mothra's back. So now you have the three kaiju teamed up, ready to fight Scar King, fight Shimo, and Scar's army. Or it would have been his army. So, at this point in the movie, I think the problem that we're now realizing is Godzilla joining Kong in this fight. We lose there's no suspense anymore, in my opinion, only because we've seen Godzilla in the 2014 movie. He beat his villain. He beat the Titan. Then we get to Godzilla King of the Monsters. He beat Ghidorah without help. Mothra helped him a little bit, but then he 1v1. He defeated Ghidorah. And then we get to Godzilla vs. Kong, and he sort of beat the crap out of Kong. And then in this movie, Godzilla X Kong, he defeats two kaijus on his own before he even meets with Godzilla, or before he even meets with Kong, and essentially beats him again. So at this point, Godzilla is written to the point where all the writing and story behind his character, he sort of feels untouchable. So when they pit him against Scar King and Shimo, as an audience, we have no doubt Godzilla's going to win. And there's no stakes anymore. There's the fear of Scar King getting through the portal, getting to the rest of the world. But the stakes aren't there. Even though if Scar King makes it through, we know Godzilla is going to beat him. So we have these, this fight 2v2. Mothra was, she showed up in the surface world, she wasn't there for the beginning of the fight. So we could have our 2v2 with Scar King versus Kong and Shimo versus Godzilla. And this is where the movie just kind of looks ridiculous. Just them jumping, their sheer agility all of a sudden with Shimo and Godzilla. There's a sheer agility between them for their characters. And sort of just comes out of nowhere. And there's a lot of parts of this movie that's entertaining. It's just fun action. There's not a lot that you can sort of defend or explain or teach about how this movie really works. It's just one of those things that's just fun. If you're just there for the ride, it's just a fun movie. And that's really all it is on the surface. That's all I needed from it, and I was entertained. That's really it. So in this fight, clearly, Godzilla and Kong, they win. Zuko actually does help out toward the end, and he actually destroys the crystal that Scar King, with his little wand, destroys it so he can't control Shimo anymore. So between Zuko, Kong, Godzilla, and Shimo, Scar King is just defeated extremely quickly after that point. And at this point, they had reached Earth. They've reached the surface world. So that's where the final stand took place. Not a lot of damage happens, but that's where it takes place, and that's where he's defeated. I think at this point in the franchise, it sort of made you feel this way in Godzilla versus Kong, and the same way in this one. In the sense of when Godzilla is sensing things, he's just walking through the cities, destroying anything he can, whatever he can. He's walking through bridges. He has no care in the world for any of the people. And Kong goes out of his way. There are scenes in this movie where he sees he's kicked by Scar King toward a building, and he's bracing himself because he sees people and he doesn't want to hurt anyone. So Kong is definitely portrayed as the hero, sort of the one that I think the studio wants the audience to connect with, more than Godzilla at this point. Godzilla may be the cooler character. He's had more movies and he's been around for so long. But in this MonsterVerse, he's sort of like an anti-hero to the point where he definitely has a much, much higher kill count for humans than Kong. If any at all. Kong's killed a few people, sure, but Godzilla's killed so much more, and I think it's just, the difference is to the point where it's incomparable. So regardless, I don't know where the movie's going. Shimo, not under Scar King's control, returns Hollow Earth with Kong and Zuko. So Kong now has his people. Yeah, Shimo. Zuko's probably under his wing now. He's got everything. He's set up for an army. Kong's going to be unstoppable in the next one. And Godzilla, just goes back to what he was doing before. Because he was untouchable. He just showed up, killed a couple kaiju, and that's it. So, I don't know where this franchise is going. I don't know where the next movie's headed. These are just big monster movies. They're fun. They're entertaining. On a generic surface kind of level. And that's all these movies really need to be for me. I know there's a lot of people that have high expectations, and they'll study the height between the kaiju and the difference in the other projects in this one. I just don't have enough of an interest in the franchise to keep up with all of that. However, these are fun movies. I think they're entertaining, and I'm excited to see where the next one's going to take us. This one, I felt like one of the strongest things is in so many of these other movies, the human characters are just either bland or written to the point where you just want to see the monsters. In this movie, the humans were actually funny and entertaining, and it was kind of a breath of fresh air because it was different than some of the other movies because the humans were more likable characters in this one. So I hope that continues moving forward, and they can explore the Hollow Earth concept more and more. There's so much more kaiju they can put in this franchise, so I'm excited to see where it goes from here. So thank you guys so much for staying with me. Keep it digging, everyone.